Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson here from ZeldaDungeon.net, and you are watching our video boss guide for The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. This is the boss chamber of the 5th dungeon of the game, the Snowpeak Ruins. As you follow Yeto into the bedroom of the mansion, she'll take you on over to the piece of the Mirror of Twilight that they found earlier. They weren't really sure what to do with it, and as they found it, it started making monsters and stuff appear within this whole mansion, so they ended up locking it away in the bedrooms to keep it away from them. So she brought you all the way here, and as she stares into it, she repeatedly says just how pretty it is. I think the music here is kind of funny. It's kind of like a music box with a spinning ballerina or something. After a bit, she turns really dark and begins twitching, kind of creepy. Would you like a little impending doom with your lovely mirror? Suddenly, she'll turn around, and she has this amazing talent to spin your head around in place. Whoa, kind of freaky. The windows will then all burst, letting in cold air and snow, which begin flowing into the room and swirling around Yeto, encasing her in layers of ice. After a moment, the room will begin, just filling up and getting all frosty and such. And she'll begin floating up into the air, and she will solidify and crash into the floor as a giant chunk of ice. So somehow all the stuff in the room, like the bed and the dresser and tables, all that just disappears. Amazing. Thus initiates the battle with the boss of the mansion, the Twilight Ice Mask, Blizzeta. Now the first phase of the battle consists of Blizzeta in the form of a giant block of ice which slowly slides around the room and along the ice and comes towards you. So it's kind of similar to the mini freeze arts, how they bounce around the walls and such. She does it much the same way. So the ice, or the floor is all covered in ice here, so you'll slide around, you have to compensate for it with your analog stick. Now each time you smack her, however, she will reduce in size, and she'll also begin moving faster. It'll be wise to stay to one side of the room so that she doesn't run you over, and that way you can get the ball and chain ready before she comes at you. If you stay in the middle of the room, it's kind of hard to do that unless she starts moving around pretty quickly. After a few hits, the ice mask will take a different shape, which looks kind of like a chess piece or something, and for this part, she occasionally will summon tons of those little ice chunks that look similar to mini freeze arts, which she will launch in all directions after a moment. They can be destroyed using the ball and chain, and probably best course of action is to get some distance and then dodge them. Alternatively, you could also hit them with your sword once you get close, or you can probably defend against them with your shield. At least one recovery heart will always be left behind by them, so use this to your advantage, and if you are hurt, so that you can get your health back. Once you have hit her several times, she will break out of the chunks of ice and will smash into the wall. After floating up into the air for a moment, she'll scream out, summoning several giant ice spikes or whatever that surround her, and then finally surrounding herself with an icy barrier as well. Thus initiates the second phase of the battle. As soon as you gain control, you want to run around like crazy and enjoy the organ music in the background. The camera angle changes so that you can see the reflection of the floating pillars above you. My suggestion is to run around clockwise or counterclockwise around the room so that you don't get stuck near the wall. Once all of the pillar things have landed into the ground, you want to quickly turn around and hit one or two of them with the ball and chain. Next, you want to run to the center of the area, and you'll see the ice pillars will form a circle around you. Don't move. You want to wait for them to fall to the ground, and then run out through the exit that you formed by smashing the ice pillar earlier. And if you don't have a way out yet, you want to quickly make one and run out of there, because Blizzeta herself will then fall down into that center of the circle. As soon as you're out, you want to turn around and try and hit Blizzeta. Now if you miss, you'll most likely just hit more of the ice pillars, but don't fret, because that just makes it easier the next time. Also, when you hit the pillars themselves, they occasionally will leave behind recovery hearts that you can grab, and thus, in order to regain health. Once you've successfully smacked her, she'll float up into the air and summon more pillars, spike thingies, and the process will start over again. This pretty much makes all there is to this phase of the battle. The rest of the phase is done the exact same way, so just keep repeating those steps, and she'll eventually bite the dust. Or frost, rather. Once you have hit her 3 times with the ball and chain, Blizzeta will have lost most of her barrier, and you'll see the cinema in which she jerks back and forth, screaming in that odd voice. She then falls to the ground, breaking the remaining chunks of ice, and returning to the room to normal. Now, does that mean that some of this was an illusion, as everything was, was everything really frozen at all? Like, the windows at the top are now back to normal as well. So it's kind of odd. The glassy shards will then materialize in the room, which fuse back together and burst with light, forming the piece of the Mirror of Twilight that we were looking for. Now, it has a really futuristic hovering sound like a spaceship as it floats down into Link's hands. Zeminda will then appear and takes the Mirror of Twilight away for safekeeping, and reminds you that we have 2 more mirror shards left to find. She says she feels bad for being forced to beat her up like that, and that it was really lame and scary that the Mirror of Twilight can do that to people. She encourages you to hasten in your search for the remaining shards so that more innocent people don't get hurt. With that, she will form a portal out of this room, but you're probably wondering, where is the heart container that is always left behind by the bosses, huh? Shouldn't there be one in here as well? So it looks like we're going to regain control of our hero, but suddenly Yeto appears in the doorway. Gasp! So he starts yelling in horror as he sees his wife lying on the ground, and he rushes over, knocking Link over in the process. He happens to knock Link over a lot, does he not? So Yeto apparently is completely unaware of what just happened, which is probably for the best. So he explains to her that it was just a terrible dream. So she suddenly gets very concerned, wondering what happened to the mirror shard, but Yeto tells her not to worry about it, and as they stare off into each other's eyes, he assures her of his love, and that she is more precious than any dorky, evil-possessed, Twilight-empowered, corrupt mirror used to banish people to another world. Simply poetry, that. So he goes on to say, who needs a mirror? Yeto then gets all happy and apparently able to forget about the mirror, so they will then have a lovey-dovey moment in which they hug, causing recovery hearts to fly out of them and fall all over the floor. So cute. I laughed when I first saw this just because I thought it was very clever from a developer's standpoint, using a simple gameplay mechanic like recovery hearts for a movie. Something very simple they can do that, really adds some charm to it. Anyways, near the end, a heart container will pop out at long last, so be sure to grab it, extending our life by 1 whole heart. Yay! Afterwards, feel free to chat with them if you like, in which they say how much they love each other, and they will spit out yet another recovery heart. So when you're all done messing around, go ahead and head over to Midna and agree to leave. That concludes this video, fellas, and it also concludes this chapter. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time.